Hey MVPs, RicoKnows here. Going to talk to you guys about Dana White Contender Series. It's pretty simple. If you aren't aware, Dana White has a Contender Series where up-and-coming fighters try to make it into the UFC. So I want you to think of these fights as early prelims. This is UFC debut type stuff. And anything we know about that is, if we know anything about those fights, is they never go as planned. They're highly volatile, and you should not be betting on them. But the MVPs asked me to provide a video and help give picks, and I'm probably going to live stream these fights Tuesday night. So that's number one, okay? If you go to the sports book and you actually click on it, it'll tell you the time of the fights. First fight is at 7:10 Tuesday on ESPN+. So I'll have it on the Discord server. Shout out to the MVPs. Please show up. We'll be talking, and I'll give you guys live betting advice, maybe analysis and props and all those other things that are out there. I'm making this video free. If you didn't know, I break down every single fight on every single fight card, on every pay-per-view for the MVPs. Please become a member on Patreon or YouTube. We have over 4,000 members. There's a reason, right? I'm hitting at like 83% unlocked. So if I tell you this fight is a lock, then we're going to hit at that rate. But for this particular fight card, if you will, I'm not going to put it on a chart. I'm simply going to talk to you about it. So you have to watch the video. Take good notes. Pay attention. Okay, so we'll start at the very bottom of the card. We have this guy, Antoine Ho versus Loner Kavanaugh. Both guys are undefeated. I don't know about this Loner Kavanaugh. Says he's fighting out of China down here. He doesn't look Chinese to me. I watched him. He don't look Chinese to me. He looks like a mixture of Michael Chandler and Conor McGregor. And what I mean by that is he's a banger. He's out here throwing them things, and it's mean, okay? And what I see is a guy who's fought nothing but just straight cans, bro. If I can pull up his record here, he looks like a professional. Let me just say that very clearly. He looks like a professional. He fights out a Great Britain top team, so he has a great team, and he goes out there to bang. He goes out there to bang, just clear as day. You see him here. I go and watch some of his fights, just knocking the blocks off of people. He does this like explosive darting in, and he throws a killer left hook when he moves around a little bit. Nice kicks, pretty mean kicks. And I see him here, down here in his amateur results though. You see him struggling with Nick Bagley. Nick Bagley's a good grappler. He's struggling with Nick. It was a split decision. It wasn't like he walked right through him. Nick's got a good record, 5-1. This is a good opponent, and you got to draw against him. Everybody else, he's walked right through. And these are some decent opponents. Although, when I looked at Sean Marcos da Silva, I watched his fights. He's gross. Got a big old afro, moving around, got no chin, just fights weird. That dude will never be in the UFC. At least he shouldn't be. I'll tell you that right now. We ever see him in the UFC, we're betting against him 100 times. But he's fighting Antoine Ho. And the first thing I want to say is I watched Antoine Ho first. And when I watched Antoine Ho, I thought, how the hell is he an underdog? Like, if I go check the sports book, they have Antoine Ho here at a plus 152. And after I watched all his fights, the first thing I thought was, how is he an underdog? First thing, boom, there's no way. And then I go watch Loner Kavanaugh, and I go, oh, I get it. Loner Kavanaugh is that European prospect that they want to win these fights, and he's explosive, and he's going to go out there and do his thing. Look, my conclusion is this. Both of these guys will be professional fighters in the UFC. We are looking at two guys who are going to get contracts. That's how I feel about it. Okay? If I look at Antoine Ho, this is a guy, he's representing Vietnam, but he fights out of Phoenix, right? MMA Lab. When you look at MMA Lab, that's Benson Henderson's team. MMA Lab, who's the kid? Man, I just forgot his name. He's like an undefeated Kyler Phillips. Great fighter. These guys have high fight IQ. They look like professionals. This is a kid who dropped out of high school to become a fighter. Just hired a nutritionist. He's not in the UFC yet, but he's taking it 100% serious at all times. He's beat everybody in Arizona. Fights out of the RUF, RUF. Where's it at? RUF right here. RUF MMA. Forgot what it stands for. Something United Fights or something. They're good, man. They're good fighters. And even these last two fights here in his amateur ranks, Asian Liberato and Terrence Satorin, both undefeated fighters as pros. He beat both of them. He's beat studs. These guys, when you watch these fights, these are high-level fighters, and he's beaten them. These are good fighters. And they went and they lost to Antoine Ho. He stopped Asian in the third round. Asian's a good fighter. I know. I see it here. He lost by guillotine in the first round. Dude, I don't care about that. I'm telling you, this is a good fighter. And when I watch my boy, Antoine Ho, I see a complete fighter. I see a guy that can do it all. I actually see a grappler, a striker, high fight IQ. I don't see any weaknesses. I think he's got great kicks. I do understand that he's fighting a very explosive prospect that the UFC probably wants to win this fight. I understand that. If I was giving you guys a recommendation on this fight, it would be do not bet it. Do not bet this fight. I have too much respect for both of them and their explosiveness, and this should be a pick'em. If anything, you got to go with the underdog because of the plus 152. I just think it's great value. This should be a pick'em fight. They're both very good fighters. I think they're both professionals. I didn't see any issue here in their game. I like both these fighters. I'm going to be rooting for Ho. He's from Arizona. He's from America. And I can't tell you to take Kavanaugh because for a couple things I saw from Kavanaugh. One of his fights, he got clipped. I'm talking about put on the floor. And I don't believe in his chin like that. Yes, he's very explosive. I also don't know about his gas tank. I'm watching Antoine Ho win fights in the third round. It feels like both guys are very, very good prospects. I would not be betting on this fight at all. I highly recommend you MMA, you MVPs out there, just enjoy the fight for what it is and cheer for who you want to cheer for, okay? Next fight. Jose Delgado. Jose Delgado is a minus 310 favorite, and I love it. Jose Delgado looks like an MMA guy, and what I mean by that is he hit the genetic lottery. He actually has the right genetic makeup, like the right physical makeup. Like what is he? He's fighting at 145, and he's 5'11". He's got a small torso, long extremities, and he uses them really well. He's great at striking. He's great at kicking. He keeps his distance. He doesn't have the greatest chin, but he's really smart. By the way, another MMA lab guy. Another Phoenix, Arizona MMA lab guy. These guys have a great camp. They got a great gym. They got great people in their corners, and they know what they're doing. I really think he's belongs in the UFC all day long. Looks the part. I really like everything he does. And he just looks clean. Go watch that Alberto Romo fight. Romo floors him for like a split second, and he still wins that round. And he's just out there looking explosive. Watch him against Jorge Juarez. Puts that man just too much. Just puts the juice on these dudes. It's really, really nice. I like the fact that he was fighting Juarez, who is not Juarez. Who was he fighting? Where is it? It was Ramiro. Ramiro's a black belt in jiu-jitsu. And he has no problem going to the ground with a black belt in jiu-jitsu. He felt very good about his ground game. He stays in half guard. He stays in three-quarter mount. And he just ground and pounds. But he knows how to finish the fight. When I say finish, he's throwing elbows. He's raining down shots. He's a problem. I think he's a very good all-around fighter. I like this kid a lot. Okay, on the flip side, Ernie Juarez, fighting out of Stockton. Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, Gracie Fighter Stockton, whatever. This is Nate Diaz and them boys. I understand. But you know what? He thinks he's a boxer, and I don't like his chances boxing. First and foremost, when he's standing, he's shelled up in a way that I just don't believe in. Like he's like this. And he doesn't move a lot. I think you could kick him in his body, and he doesn't know how to. He doesn't move well. I understand he's a grappler. He wins a lot of fights on the ground with submissions. He figures it out. I think he's a grappler first, pretending to be a striker. I'm serious. He goes out there. He looks like this, and it's just not very fluid. He's the opposite of hitting the genetic lottery. I just don't like his potential, if you will. Like his stock is not as high. As soon as I saw him, I'm like, oh, and I know he's undefeated. I wasn't moved by anything he did in the cage. No, nothing he did. I wasn't wowed. So I wouldn't be on this kid in a million years. Jose Delgado, and I understand Delgado's a minus 3 something, but if you guys don't know how the odds work for the Contender Series, man, people get blown out all the time. You could be a minus 550 favorite and lose. That's what happened to Bruno Lopes the last time he was on Contender Series. I want you guys to know that right now. Bruno Lopes was on Contender Series minus 550 favorite over Henson just the other time, last year. Just last year, he was a minus 550 favorite in this fight, and he got knocked out in the first round. Couldn't defend against strikes, and we know that Ribeiro's just a monster. Ribeiro's a monster throwing them things. So he got caught, hammer-fisted down, and we've seen Ribeiro lose his last two fights. We actually picked against him in the Magomed fight. Shout out to the MVPs. But beating Marcos is a big deal because Marcos is a former Contender Series guy. Like, Marcos is not a bad fighter, and he beat him, and he triangle choked him. He's good all the way around. Remember, he was undefeated when he got to the Contender Series at this point. So for him to get his lone loss, bounce back with a triangle choke, now he's back on Contender Series. I believe the UFC is trying to get this guy his due and get him in the ranks, on the cards, and be a normal guy. Shout out to Ash. She's shaking. I apologize. But I understand. They're trying to get him on the card. And he's 31 years old. They want to get him in there before he misses his prime. So who's he fighting? He's fighting Miguel here. Watch Miguel. It's weird, man. He's got great kicks. He's got like spinning roundhouse kicks. He's very barrel-chested, so it looks like he's difficult to deal with on the ground. Just trying to, like, if you're in a clinch, I don't know if you guys have ever done pummeling drills with the barrel-chested guys. It's impossible, man. You're trying to keep them hooks up against the cage. You're fighting for underhooks, and you're fighting for underhooks, and you're fighting. Dude's got big old it's just difficult to deal with. I don't necessarily know if he's that skilled of a fighter. I don't believe in him like that. I mean, I see him with his kicks. I was watching one of his fights, and he just kind of stayed out of range. Who was it again? It was against Torres. And Torres is an old guy, and they went at it, and Torres actually floored him at one point. They both did like a double KO early on. They both rush at each other and just go with reckless abandon. I watched him against, who else was it? I mean, I watched every one that I could find, every one of these fights that I could find online. And I want to tell you, I can't remember which one it was, but it might have been Abdullah. He looks like he stays out of range, and he's really afraid to throw them things. Although he looks like a striker and he looks like he's mean, I don't think he's built for it. And at the same time, I think there's a huge discrepancy on the ground. So I personally don't like Lopes in this position. And the only reason I'm saying that is the odds are enormous. I don't like it. I understand a lot of people are going to be on Lopes at minus 210. I know. You guys go chalk if you want. I'm going to leave it alone. I'll just watch it, and congratulations to Lopes for making it to the UFC at some point. He does have an advantage on the ground. I understand if MVPs want to go there and get that minus 105. You can do that. That's on you. Some MVPs are better than others. The next fight, Meng Ding against Rami Hamed. Rami Hamed is a late replacement. I think he just took this fight on a week's notice, and this is what the Dana White Contender Series is notorious for, is people have visa issues, people get sick, people move to other cards, so you just get a new opponent. And here's Meng Ding getting a new opponent in Rami Hamed. Looking at Meng Ding, he seems like a striker. He seems like a brutal striker. He's got a ton of knockouts. The man's got 34 wins, and I don't know how many knockouts he has, 27 of them. But who's he knocking out, bro? He's knocking out a bunch of dudes overseas, and we know the Asian fighters got no chin. We know the Asian fighters, I mean, they're like this. You can't tell if their eyes are open or not. They're just getting knocked out everywhere. It's just like, what's going on? What's going on? We almost lost a fight like that this weekend, right? We got it right. We almost lost a fight like that this weekend when we said Gregario was not going to win. Shout out to the MVPs. We got it right. But I'm just saying, a lot of these guys, They ain't real, bro. Nonetheless, I think he's going to win the fight. I wouldn't bet on it, though. I don't like last-second replacements, but I do understand. Rami sucks, personally. Rami's hands are at his waist. He's got the wrong stance. He's got the wrong protective stance. He does throw kicks. He's all kicks all day, pretending to be a puncher, pretending to be a striker. I think he can get knocked out. I think he's got no business out there trying to scrap with somebody. He's going to kick and move. It could be frustrating, but it feels like Meng Ding can just go out there and get it done. So if you guys see a prop bet, I don't believe in any of this stuff. Look, man, he beat Julio Diaz with leg kicks. Julio Diaz is not a good fighter. Let's be clear. Julio Diaz has been losing for a long time. He's not 3-7, bro. His amateur record was trash. You lose this many fights in a row, fighting's not for you. You lose this many fights in a row, this isn't it, bro. You're 1-5 as an amateur, and you decide to go pro? What do you think is going to happen? This isn't real. So Ramy beating him doesn't really move me like that. Okay? I watching this Ramy dude fundamentally doing things wrong. And I think he's going to go out here and get floored. I do. I like Meng Ding to win the fight. What do these odds look like? Like I said, I don't like last-second replacements. Yeah, Meng Ding win the fight. There you go. There's your 3 chalk bets, and it's plus 200 MVPs. 3 chalks, and it's plus 200. Let me tell you, Contender Series never goes that way. But let's do it. Good luck on that. Personally, I like Delgado. And then we get down here. And I want to be clear on something. Mansour, Abdul, Malik, and Wes Schultz. Kim was watching me do research on these 2 dudes, and she's like, what are you watching? Because I'm watching Wes Schultz do some fights in a basement somewhere with no gloves on. It was just a grappling-only match. And then I saw him doing other fights. You know, the grappling-only match ain't even on his record here, if you will. This is a wrestler. Some of his early fights are at heavyweight, and then he goes down to light heavyweight, and now we're at what, 180? So, like, for me, when I look at this, we're at middleweight. When I look at these fights, it's hard to tell how good he is. He's a good wrestler. He's a wrestler. And he kind of strings it out. I think he's in good shape. You see him with a fight here against Dylan Butka, and that's important because Butka's actually in the UFC right now. And Butka lost a couple fights now, but Butka beats him by unanimous decision. The fact that he went the distance with Butka tells me a couple things. Number one, you can get in the cage with a UFC caliber fighter and make it through 3 rounds. Okay? But when you watch fights like this Victor Jones dude, this is embarrassing. Victor Jones taps and then pretends he didn't tap and all this other shit. Like, you're like, what are you doing, bro? Like, this is what you're dealing with on the regional scene? So it's tough. And then you're fighting a guy like Mansour Abdul Malik. I guess the way to describe him is explosive. He's winning every single fight in the first round. Knockouts everywhere. Knockouts, ground and pound, knockout, ground and pound, ground and pound, knockout. Bro, I go back and watch it. Cole Jordan floored him. Cole Jordan's an out-of-shape white dude, and he put this man on the ground. Now, I don't think Wes Schultz is going to try to floor this Abdul Malik guy. Abdul Malik looks scary at striking. He's very muscular for the weight class. He looks like he throws them things, and I'm sure the UFC wants him knocking people out. And they want that on their card, and that's why they're bringing him in after only 5 wins. Remember, what's his amateur record? 1-0? 1-0 at the amateur ranks. No real time in the cage. We're talking about winning 1, 2, 3, less than 1. That's 4, 8. He's got 10 minutes in the cage total in his life. 10 against just absolute cans. And I'm looking at Wes Schultz, and I'm like, bro, Wes Schultz be stringing these fights out. And guess who doesn't have a gas tank? Guess who goes out here and bangs, but doesn't have a gas tank? His muscular endurance is not there. Lactic acid is going to build up. I don't know. If we get to the second round, he's losing the fight. If we get to the second round, he's losing the fight. Wes Schultz used to fight heavyweight. You don't think he's got a chin? You think he's coming down? Man, I'm telling you, roll your shoulders up, tuck your chin, get a takedown, and take the fight out of this man. I really think these are good fighters, but one guy has no gas tank. So unless he's going out there to just floor you and knock you out, I'm looking at Wes Schultz like, man, I like his fight IQ. I like his mentality. I like the way he's built for this, like mentally. I'm watching him in interviews. It just feels like Wes Schultz got a shot here. And at plus 250, that's my value bet for the night. You take it straight across. You don't parlay anything. And I'm on Meng Ding. I'm on Lopes, but I really don't like it. And I'm really on Delgado a lot. And then the first fight I don't touch. Both great fighters. I really like Antoine Ho to go out there and rep America to the best of his ability. Those are the fights. They're difficult, guys. This is not you don't go blind tail this. You don't go blind tail this. Okay? Sit down and watch them. I'm telling you, some of these fights aren't going the distance. This one right down here, not going the distance. You can't bet on it yet. The wages aren't up yet. But look for it tomorrow morning. Make sure you can go and say not going the distance. If I get all 5 right, it's plus 2,500. Let's not do that, okay? Because I'm actually not picking these based on trying to get them right. I'm telling you, there's some EV here. My expected value is here. My expected value is here. There's just no way they should be that big of an underdog. And then the rest are kind of like, I don't like the price of Lopes. Meng Ding makes sense. And Delgado's my dude, man. He looks like a great fighter. That's what I got for these fights, y'all. I hope you enjoy them. I'll see you guys on the live stream. Please become an MVP. We don't miss. Your friends don't know. But Rico knows. Peace, y'all.